right, welcome back. You're listening to Final Extra on talkSPORT 2. Adi Oladipo, the great Gareth Davies. All right, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, 22nd of February, the greatest fight card that we've all ever seen. I mean, there are some people that are like, okay, Don King did this in the 80s, and he did, but nothing like this. I mean, a fight card which has Callum Smith and Joshua Buatsi walking first, I think wins. That's my argument with this one. The main event is a repeat of the fight that happened in October. I am talking Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol for all the marbles again, all the belts at 175 pounds. Gareth, um, who's got the advantage of this fight happening so quick? Like this is quite a quick turnaround for a fight of this magnitude. Normally you're waiting 6 or 7 months. This is what 4 or 5 months. Who's got the advantage, you think, in that?
I think Artur Beterbiev, even though I'm picking Dmitry Bivol to win it on points, and I may be wrong, I picked Dmitry the first time on points, but scored it for Artur Beterbiev 7-5 on the night. Artur's got the advantage because he knows he's done it once, and he caught the judge's eyes, and he was the if I can use the word bully in there towards the end. And Bivol's admitting that he needs to change his game plan, that he needs to be busier, that he needs to win rounds with more efficacy. Again, I could be completely wrong on this. It's such a hard pick. I think I'm picking Bivol on points to be more improved and do more in the first 30 seconds and last 30 seconds of each of the rounds. Because in my mind's eye, because they're both so special, I want a trilogy. I want to see these guys fight each other for 36 minutes. I mean, I don't know. I don't see the fight any differently. It was close. People can say controversial. It was in a way, but the three judges agreed on 9 of the same rounds together, and that's where the differential came when they went 3-2-1 separately. With I think one was drawn and was one card drawn, and then 2, 1-14, 1-12, 1-15, 1-13, 1-16, 1-12. That's where the separation comes with those cards. But I don't know how you see it, whether you see it any differently, and how you saw it the first time
Round,
yourself.
I'm Team Bivol. I love Dmitry Bivol a lot. I think he's a fantastic fighter, but a fantastic person as well. And you kind of get close to these fighters around fight week, and you just kind of see them outside of their boxing skills, you like, just as a human being. And I always get on with Dmitry Bivol. I thought Beterbiev did enough to nick the first fight, and I just kind of wonder what improvements both can make. But I thought Dmitry Bivol was almost excellent, and I'm like, for him to kind of be a bit more risky, and that's probably what he needs to be to win those close rounds, he's going to have to stay in the wheelhouse a bit. And that's quite dangerous with someone that can punch as hard as Beterbiev. So I'm not quite sure what Bivol can do to better that performance. Whereas if you're Beterbiev, and again, speaking to Beterbiev, I was like, your knee couldn't have been 100% first time round. And he said he was a bit wary of the knee, considering he had surgery 4 months prior. But he said now the knee's 100%, because he wasn't too happy with his movement. He felt like he didn't cut the ring off enough. But he's thinking now the knee's 100% and he trusts it mentally. He's looking to be a bit more assertive in terms of cutting the ring off. So I think he can make that improvement, whereas I'm not quite sure how much more riskier Bivol can get without getting chinned.
Bivol's got to keep telling himself that Beterbiev was 40 last month. He's got to keep telling himself that. You know, he really has. And I think, if anything, you know, he's the younger man and he's got to try and press. You're right. He's got to press Beterbiev and outbox him. A lot of people, by the way, people I really respect in the sport, believe that Bivol did outbox him the first time and that Bivol should have gone away with the decision. But there was that differential in 2 dimensions and live. People watching on TV felt that Bivol was spectacular on the night and his boxing was supreme. In the arena, it felt like Beterbiev came on strong at the end of the fight. I don't feel, when the fight ended, even though they gave everything technically and physically, they didn't seem to have given their souls in there. And I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but they were both almost completely intact at the end of it. There were no knockdowns. There were no...
No one ever got beat
up in any round. No, exactly. They scored against each other. This might be a different fight this time. Second fights have got a habit of going completely differently. But I think Bivol has got it technically to win the fight. It's how he deals with those punches in bunches and the thrashing machine that Beterbiev becomes. He might need to be cleverer with his footwork this time. But again, Beterbiev's footwork is simple but
It is.
underrated
It is
as
very,
well.
very much
So,
in the Golovkin mode.
and maybe, yeah, exactly. A destroyer, amazing levers. And maybe Bivol, the key is maybe he has to stand with him and outbox him in the
And
mid
that
range
just
this
sounds
time.
frightening. You know, you said you want Bivol to
It
win
does.
just because, not because you know you don't like Paterba, but because you want to see a trilogy. And I was with you up until about 3 weeks ago, because all of a sudden there's this Mexican American called David Benavidez, and he's going to be ringside, and the violent man in me just wants to see Benavidez versus Beterbiev, and I just feel like that's a car crash waiting to happen. And almost I want Bivol to win because I love Bivol, but I also want to see Beterbiev Benavidez
Mm,
before Beterbiev hits 41. Like, I just want to see those two crack on in the
yeah,
summer. And I think that's what Benavidez is coming there to get ringside, to maybe, I dare say, get in the ring and say, okay, let's do this. And you know, Turkey will make that fight in a heartbeat. So yes, I want Bivol to win, but I also don't want to see Benavidez sit it out too long as well. I want to see him have a crack at the winner.
I completely agree with everything you've said, and that is where I am. That's where I sit with it. Listen, they never bring a fighter ringside all the way over to Riyadh for
Exactly.
no reason at all, and I think if Beterbiev wins, I think we see Benavidez probably step into the ring on the night. They don't waste opportunities. Yeah, exactly. Um, but these two guys from the Russian steppes are worthy of 36 rounds together because they're both
Yeah.
modern masters. But the other thing about Beterbiev, I said that he's 40. He could age overnight. He could
Yeah.
age during the fight. And as I say, that's what Bivol's got to keep in his mind. It was a very close fight first time around, but generally, when one guy wins the first one, he's on the
Yeah,
way to the
there were a
second.
few light heavies in and around me yesterday. Obviously, Callum Smith was there, Boatsi, obviously Bivol, Baturga, and you end up sizing them all up because they came in not too far after each other. And I have to admit, Boatsi almost looked the
Mm.
smallest of them. And I looked at Beterbiev, like he's width of his back. He's by far the biggest. He's not the tallest. Callum Smith is by far the biggest. And I look at him and think, I wouldn't mind seeing you at cruiserweight just for one at cruiser. It's a big jump. We know 175 up to 200 plus, but I just want to see if he can do it because I don't know. I look at Zerdo. Zerdo's not the biggest cruiserweight. Zerdo's come up from 168 6 years ago to 175. So he might look at Zerdo and think, you're not that bigger than me. You know, we could get it on. I just feel like there's another jump there for Beterbiev. Not the rest of them. The rest of them are maxed out at 175. But I just feel like Beterbiev, he looked huge yesterday. Looked massive.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, but also, I think there's an element of him where he's grown wings a little bit in terms of opening
Yeah.
up as a person. I've noticed in the last 5 6 months since that last fight, I think they're probably
Mm.
being paid more. I think they're getting what they're worth now, what they feel in their minds. He's certainly grown as a champion. When we were around him in London, he was a lot more fun. I mean, he was ribbing me, but he pulled me on saying to Bivol, "You need to win this second one." He'd overheard it and said, "You were being bad. You're saying bad things about me." And I've
No, but
told you about this
it's quite
before,
scary. Even though
but
he's
he was
playing,
more.
it's still quite intimidating.
Well, I thank God I knew he was actually playing because, like you say, otherwise you run a mile. Joseph Parker said, "I'm not looking after you." He was standing there at the time, all 125 kilos of him. Um, Look, I think, like you say, the biggest leap is light heavyweight to cruiserweight in all boxing, unless you're fighting a giant, unless it's a David Hay against a
Value wave.
Valuev, as we saw, 7'2" against 6'2", and 5 stone between them. But It's a massive leap to cruiserweight. Zurdo, like you say, was a 168 fighter, but he was always he's got a big frame and he's 6'2", and he's grown into it. He's a very young fighter at super middle. I just think that there's a big size difference between Jaya Pataya, who probably walks around at 220, and Artur Beterbiev, who probably walks around at about 200 in natural weight. But it's not a fight it's a fight I'm not loath to watching, but I do think there'll be massive advantages for Jaya Pataya in that. And given that Beterbiev's
and now that Benavidez is around and Morale's there and Boazzi, there are options now as well for Beterbiev to want to stay in the light heavyweight division. There are money fights out there.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.